4:30 p.m, Uxbridge, a scream, 3 stabbed, 1 clinging to life. Officers forced to draw tasers. The attacker, a 22-year-old Afghan national, had been granted asylum in 2022. Within an hour, Britain was boiling. Footage exploded online. Blood on concrete, panic in daylight. By nightfall, protests ignited outside migrant hotels. 5 cities from Kent to Southampton. Taxpayer-funded shelters now housing those turning knives on British sons. 8.2 million spent every day, 51,000 migrants in hotel rooms. How many warnings before Britain itself erupts? Stay tuned, because what came next began in Westminster's heart. Inside the Commons, tempers flared while the blood in Uxbridge hadn't yet dried.
Arrivals are up more than 50% when compared to the same period before the election.
Illegal crossings up 52%, hotel dependency up 47%, less than 2% ever deported. The Home Office called it progress, Britain's called it betrayal. And while ministers rehearsed their talking points, the streets outside began to fracture. Labour framed it as humanitarian management, Conservatives as a system strain. But to millions paying the price, this was neither compassion nor control. It was collapse. Parliament closed in shouting, not solutions. And outside, Britain's patience finally broke.
Free hotel, free food, free trainers, free money.
Southampton moved first. 60,000 in the streets, flares in hand, banners raised. Portsmouth followed, then Brighton, tens of thousands more. By dawn, the entire south coast burned red with fury, fire, flags, and a message Westminster could no longer ignore. At Highfield House Hotel alone, 250 riot officers faced a wall of rage and smoke. The chants rose like thunder. Protect our women! Save our kids! They echoed through the narrow streets, bouncing off shattered windows and burned out cars. Glass broke, bottles flew, and pepper spray drifted through the night air like fog over the channel. 14 officers injured, 24 detained, yet the crowd kept coming. Veterans, mothers, students, even teenagers, people who'd never protested before, now united under one cause. The fight wasn't just physical, it was emotional, primal, collective, a nation's frustration combusting in real time. It wasn't about compassion anymore, it was about consequence written in blood. For years, people had been told to stay silent, to trust the system. That night, silence burned. Government officials urged calm from behind bulletproof glass, but calm never came. The line between control and chaos had not been weakened, it had been suffocated, and now it was breaking loose. By sunrise, Southampton was no longer just a city, it was a signal flare. Stop illegal migration now! The words were spray-painted across shop fronts, scrawled on bus stops, shouted into cameras. Smoke still hovered above Portswood Road. Police sealed off the Highfield district, reporting 47 arrests, 19 injuries and $2 million in property damage. What began as protest had turned into siege. The Home Office called it a contained disturbance. Locals called it revenge. The council met that morning behind closed doors, officials pale and wordless, promising a full investigation. Outside, no one listened. The crowd had its own declaration. Southampton speaks for Britain. By then, the message had already spread online, faster than the government could erase it. Across Telegram and encrypted group chats, the footage multiplied. Police barricades collapsing, flags waving, a single chant through the smoke. Enough. Inside Downing Street, tension crackled like static. Ministers arrived through side entrances under floodlights, faces drawn, voices hushed. By 7 a.m, the Prime Minister had called an emergency Cobra meeting. The first line on every briefing sheet asked the same question. Who lost Southampton? Intelligence warned that 12 other cities were preparing to rise. Police reserves were drained. 9,000 overtime hours logged in a single night. The Home Secretary demanded full control. The Defence Minister refused, calling it a domestic war we can't win. Leaks began within hours. A memo titled Operation Restore Silence outlined curfews and nationwide media blackouts. It spread faster than officials could deny it. By noon, markets dipped 2.8% and foreign headlines called Britain a democracy in retreat. Inside the cabinet room, voices collided. Someone shouted, "You can't police 67 million people." No one replied. The Prime Minister stared at the red folder marked National Order Act Draft. He didn't sign it, he just whispered, "Contain it." 2,000 soldiers were placed on standby under Operation Fortress. Armoured vehicles rolled toward the south coast. Officially, logistical support. Unofficially, something darker. But the footage told its own story. Convoys under Union Jack flags heading towards cities still cloaked in smoke. Civil servants began leaking documents faster than censors could react. Police morale down 37%, public confidence down 62%, and somewhere between those numbers, the ground beneath Britain shifted. A Whitehall source described the mood in 3 words: fear of ourselves. Outside number 10, reporters shouted questions no one dared answer. The Prime Minister hadn't been seen in 31 hours. The gates trembled under flashbulbs and silence. Inside, aides drafted a single line for the evening statement: the government remains in control. But no one believed that anymore. By nightfall, the blackout began. National broadcasters switched to pre-recorded nature documentaries and cooking reruns. Social media throttled videos tagged Southampton, but the truth had already escaped. Mirror uploads, proxy sites, foreign servers. Within 24 hours, 47 million views. The footage was raw: an old woman crying through tear gas, police guarding an empty hotel, a child waving the flag upside down. Each image tore another hole in the illusion of order. Inside the BBC, staff leaked memos titled Public Reassurance Package. ITV anchors refused to read the scripts. For the first time in years, Britain's press fractured. The Herald's front page read only, "What are we defending?" That question echoed louder than the protests themselves. It reached classrooms, barracks, pulpits, even Parliament. Priests began quoting psalms about false kings and blind shepherds. The silence from power had become the loudest sound in the country, and for the first time, people stopped waiting for permission to speak. They filmed, they shared, they remembered. The blackout became the brightest night Britain had ever seen. 36 hours after the first riot, the Prime Minister finally appeared. A national address filmed under sterile white light. No flag, no applause. He called it an isolated security breach in Hampton. But the words rang hollow because by then the public no longer looked to London for truth. They were looking to each other.
Arrivals are up more than 50% when compared to the same period before the election.
As the Prime Minister spoke, millions watched from their phones, not televisions, commenting, mocking, translating every word into disbelief. Outside, crowds gathered again. In Portsmouth, veterans sang the national anthem. In Nottingham, teachers held candles. In Manchester, 10,000 stood in silence for the injured and the ignored. The anthem echoed across cities, sent her victorious, happy and glorious. But the tone wasn't pride, it was warning. Inside Downing Street, staff whispered that the speech felt like a eulogy. Even allies admitted the Prime Minister looked like a man already gone. When the broadcast ended, there was no applause, only clapping from outside. Slow, deliberate, defiant. It wasn't celebration, it was countdown. At dawn they came. Hundreds of veterans marching without banners or slogans, only medals on their chests. They lined the streets of Southampton, shoulder to shoulder, silent. Reporters called it the March of the Forgotten. A retired sergeant told Sky News, "We defended this country once, now we're defending it again from within." Police were ordered to disperse them. Many refused. Several officers simply stepped aside, saluting as the veterans passed. That image, the salute, spread faster than any riot clip. By midday, more than 60 towns held parallel vigils. For the first time in decades, Britain looked at itself and saw division wearing a uniform. In Parliament, emergency debates descended into chaos. One MP shouted, "You've lost the public, you've lost the army. What's left?" No one answered. By evening, veterans across social media posted a single line: "We serve the people, not the politicians." That night, soldiers guarding Downing Street lowered their weapons, and for a moment the standoff that had defined a generation gave way to something no order could command: respect. The next morning, Britain woke to quiet. No speeches, no press, just streets swept clean by exhaustion. But under that silence, something irreversible had shifted. The government still stood, technically, but authority had already left the building. Power now belonged to those who refused to forget. From Uxbridge to Southampton, from Commons to Coast, one truth echoed through every home: Britain was never broken, only unheard, and now it was speaking again. The lion wasn't going back to sleep, it was watching, waiting, remembering what it means to roar. If you stand for truth, subscribe now, because the next roar has already begun.